Dr. Khalid AlMaeena joins us today with his wife Summer and daughter Leena. He is a humanitarian, defender of workers' rights, rights of women, a human rights activist, a veteran Saudi journalist, media commentator, a businessman, and of course, a family man. Khalid was the editor-in-chief of Arab News and later on Saudi Gazette. His op-ed pieces have appeared in newspapers around the globe. He has worked for the advancement of women and was the first employer of women in Saudi at Arab News. Later on, his daughter Leena was appointed to the Shura Council in Saudi in 2016. He is a vanguard of workers' rights and had focused on reporting and seeking justice for them. They were Hindus, Sikhs, Christians, and Muslim workers. He is known as the man behind the green truth. Khalid was recognized for standing up for the rights of oppressed and projecting the true values of Islam. The Pakistani government awarded him their highest civilian award, the Sitara-e-Imtiaz. I'm sure those of you from the subcontinent may recognize Dilip Kumar was also awarded the same award after Khalid got his award. In the Philippines, he was honored with an honorary doctorate as well. At the Center for Pluralism, we see an alignment of our work bringing people together and standing up for the rights of others to create secure societies for every human being. Would you please welcome Dr. Khalid AlMaeena, the man behind the green truth, defender of human rights, and a fellow pluralist, with a big round of applause. Yes. I am short, that's why I didn't stand behind it.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here with all of you. Some people I've been following on Twitter, read about them, and indeed it's a pleasure to be here. Well, I'm very fortunate to have come from a family of pluralists. As you had said, that we are made by how our minds are made, either at home or nowadays by the media. I always believe that we, in the final analysis, we are all human beings. We have the same, if you cut any one of us, the blood is red. So there is not much that can hold us to be together. And you spoke about pluralism, and I remember I read one of my heroes, General Dwight Eisenhower, and when he was asked, do you hate Germans? And he replied in one sentence, I don't hate in plurals. Great answer. So this is the way how it is. But then again, some of the people here asked me to speak about what's happening in Saudi Arabia, because you see, when you read here, and I read the newspapers of the United States while I'm back home there, you get, fits what's happening. Let me tell you something. In the last 3 or 4 years, there have been great changes there, in the sense that things have gone back right on course. For years, there was the extremist philosophy, there was suspicion of others, there were things that were themselves alien to the very ideology of our religion, but the religion has been hijacked all over the world by self-appointed mullahs, sadhus, pundits, priests, whoever it is. And I think it's right now people like us in this room should try and strive and see to it that we get it back on course. In Saudi Arabia these days, people talk about women's rights. They existed, but the media never focused on them. A gentleman asked me whether there's an art and culture. So I said, yes. They usually refer to us as the land of sun, sand, and oil. But believe me, a literary movement has been going there for about 100 years. I remember songs. My grandfather used to listen to local songs. So we have our version of Ashok Kumar and Muhammad Rafi and others who sing. So these are the things that people don't know. or the media tries not to push forward. I don't know why. I've been in the media, but let me assure you that 90% of what I read, I'm a liberal. I am secular politically. I see what's going on, and I'm aghast and really disappointed at really so-called quality papers in the United States when they report on Asia and other places. You think that, everything is haywire out there. So I think that Saudi Arabia is on the right course. We have a young leadership that is focused on having reforms. The way to 2030 is not going to be easy. Mistakes are going to be made, but as all humans do. But I think personally, and I would consider myself as a senior citizen, hope to see that this vision really would materialize. There's a buzz in Saudi Arabia. Young people are coming up. And for a long time, because remember, we are a patriarchal society. Most Asian societies are patriarchal. You have the tribal society, and then you have the family, where all the words come from up to down, whether it's the tribal leader or whether it's the father. Right now, young people are coming in. They are having their own decisions. You have ministers at the age of 35. You have women ambassadors all over. So we can see a new type of resonance in the area. And this, to me, is very positive. Again, Dr. Mike said to me, we speak about pluralism, and we talk about how the points of convergence are. Let me tell you also, while Saudi Arabia used to be on the receiving end, most of the international aid, and after the United States or Japan, we were number 3 in international aid for countries where disasters struck. So you would see that Saudi aid to India, which is a Hindu country, or to Mexico, which is a Catholic country, would go without any focus on color or any other factors. It was given on a humanitarian basis. Many things are happening. Unfortunately, they were never reported, or they were sidelined or misreported. So let me assure you that what is happening now in Saudi Arabia is a great renaissance. You see, people coming up, goals, and lessening the dependence on oil. This is very important. So you have a new economic frame of mind, which is now focusing on how to get things done, because the Teslas are coming and other things are coming. But at the same time, there is a strong and deep-rooted feeling that we have to be going ahead and to be passengers on the train of progress rather than be mere bystanders. So that is the thing. I was asked whether it was safe for a woman to be there, and I smiled. I'm always asked that there are women here who can answer that. But let me assure you, the same question was asked when women were given the right to drive. People said there has been no rape cases, there have been no kidnappings, because the culture of rape does not exist. And I'm not saying as I'm a Saudi, in the whole Gulf area, and I'm speaking about, I'm not saying that we are angels, but this culture of rape, this culture of, the zamindars and the others and the DSP and the CSP, and some people from the subcontinent would realize what I'm saying, does not exist. So in many ways, it is very safe for women to be there. Women are taking a greater role in society. And I always have this anecdote, which I got from someone who said, when they asked about women in Saudi Arabia, and he said, for the first 28 years, our mothers rule us. The next 28 years, our wives rule us. Then we become harmless. So, so this is it. And then again, the role of the mother. As in the Hindu culture of the Mata, where you respect, in the Islamic version, heaven lies under the feet of the mother. So there is great respect for the mother. In 95% of the families, there are errant families everywhere, but the role of the mother, the grandmother, is very paramount in the way we are shaped up. This brings me to the other point, where we have to be very careful with parents, misguided or intentional, would not cause any grievance in our hearts for people of other religions. I was a very lucky man. I grew up among Muslims, Hindus. I went to a Catholic school and others. And for 28 years, my right-hand man was called Ram Narayan. And I depended on him in the Arab news. On the left side was Ram Kumar. So I had these two Rams, the Chota Ram and the Bada Ram, the small Ram and the big Ram with me. You never thought of somebody from another religion, you see. But this is how we are because our parents shape us. So I think you have to focus more on parents. Now your other enemy is the media, the generalization, hatred. And I claim to be an expert. There are no experts on the subcontinent because I do go to both countries, and in both countries I'm accosted, and sometimes they say I'm an agent of this country or I'm an agent of that, but I say I'm my own agent. And I'll just give you an example of how this generalization of hatred happens. Three things. We'll start with Arafat. Yasser Arafat was asked to, when after Beirut, to come and speak in Paris. The French government, thanks to Israeli interference, did not give him the visa. Who represented Yasser Arafat? Bruno Kreisky. And the people were shouting, some of the hardline Israeli supporters, and Bruno Kreisky, who is Jewish, took the microphone and said, I am Yasser Arafat. So they all kept quiet. So you see this idea that we focus on principles rather than religion and all. In India, I went to Udaipur, which you know in the Rajasthan area, and since I speak Hindi, I asked the guy, they thought that I was an educated Pathan or somebody from the other side, which I am not. There's no ethnic connection between me and the subcontinent. And I said, first I'll say in Hindi, wo tumhara dushman hai? That are those guys across the border your enemy? And this village of Adivasis, you know, they said, no. Hamara dushman, hamara pet. That hunger is my enemy, not the guy on the other side. So you see, the common factor that unites all of us is to avoid hunger, to avoid illness, to avoid disease, to look for the future, focus on the environment. These are the basic issues. The media is not doing a good job. They create hatred. Arabs are bad. Jews are bad. And you know, for years, even the Yahudi, which is in Arabic. Now the problem with the Arabs is they use the word Yahudi for the Israeli, and I always tell them no, because there are many Israelis who are mean hombres. But I tell you, there are people in Israel who, when the cartoons happened in Europe, remember the original cartoon of Geert Wilders and others, the best article on the Holy Prophet Muhammad was written by a gentleman called Yuri Avnery, who was Jewish, he was Israeli, and I bet you no Muslim can write an article about the Prophet. The other gentleman also who wrote about the Prophet was Rodinson, Maxine Rodinson, who was Jewish. And the way he portrayed and the way he wrote, you see, academic, very scientific. So these are the things that we have to focus on, you see. India, you see that nowadays, unfortunately, is in the midst of some acts that are different to what of the India that I knew. But there are good people. There are people who care. Unfortunately, many of us are afraid to pick up the spade and say, it's a spade, you know. We just keep quiet. So I think all of us in this room should strive to focus on being together, speaking the truth. We may not be like each other. We may have great differences. But believe me, I think in the final analysis, now the first enemy of everyone in humanity today is the scourge of the pandemic. Every country is suffering. People are dying. Where I have had friends and relatives die in the last 15 years. The same thing has happened to everyone around. So I wouldn't gloat if people die in Israel, or they die in Iraq, or they die in India, or they die in Pakistan, or it might come to me, you see. And this is important. So leaders, people in society, we might think we are small people. We always think, you know, but every word counts. I've noticed that the more I engage with people, the more, you know, not to change their mindset, the more they are understanding. It's very important. This Ramadan, or the month of fasting, Mr. Imran Khan was in Saudi Arabia. So yes. So I was sitting during the iftar, and I asked him, I like to goad Imran Khan, you know, So he's a fast bowler. I throw a spin bowling. And I said, Imran, have you ever thought of a war with India? And you know what he answered me? He said, Khalid, how can you imagine that my son would fight in war against the son of Gavaskar or Manjrekar or Kumble? Great answer. He said, how could you imagine? They can fight on the cricket pitch. But he said, I would never thought that these people are my brothers. So you see, the problem is that even people are afraid to say this because we believe that those who shout trying to put us down. I have never felt malice towards anyone, believe me. And I tell you, and all of you I'm sure not. After 9/11, and since we are approaching, it was the application of the principle of collective guilt. Every Muslim is a terrorist and all. I mean, the people who did it they don't represent me. They don't represent my wife. They don't represent Muslims. The Taliban now, because of the Taliban, there's again a resurgence in the subcontinent and others against Muslims. They don't represent us. Now, ifs and buts are very crucial in world history and the global game. Now, if the Soviet Union did not invade Afghanistan, maybe 9/11 would not have happened. Maybe the Taliban would not have occurred. But who supported them? And they supported them for a cause. Even the city of Alamo, and remember the Alamo, had done 50 to 60,000 posters, remember Afghanistan. And they had Davy Crockett's picture on it. And I don't know why would Davy Crockett's picture be there in Afghanistan. It was so, the only thing they missed was Jim Boovie. Otherwise, I would have phoned them. So these were the things that you incited the whole generation of people to hate. Hate the red, McCarthy area. There's a red under every bed. Kill a red, make my day. Same thing, kill a Soviet. The Soviets went out. There were 25,000 people in Afghanistan, young people from all over the world. I was sitting in Peshawar and there was this blue-eyed boy come in about 24, 25, and he sat down and I said, where are you from? And he said, I'm from Brussels. I said, what are you doing here? He said, what are you doing here? He thought I was a European. I said, no, I just came to see my staff to take care of them because I had sent reporters from the Arab News. And he said, I have come here to fight with the Mujahideen. I said, what have you got to do? He said, no, the idea of firing a Kalashnikov excited me, and he left his job as a bartender and he went to Afghanistan. So you see that as in for whom, or people who read For Whom the Bell Tolls, you see about the Spanish Civil War, brother against brother. So the Afghan war excited people, incited. The Soviets left, and when they left, there were 25,000, 15. These people didn't know what to do. Governments are to blame. They did not take them back, put them in the mainstream society. When they came back, many of them were arrested. So there was a grievance. So there was a gentleman who said, come with me. So these are the issues. We cannot blame the acts of young people now for the follies of the old guys who were there in the ministries of defense, in Whitehall, in other places in NATO. So we are very quick to blame. I think this was created and contrived. Right now it's too late to cry over spilt milk, but what we can do together is to see whether in our personal frame of life, whether we work, whether we are in media and others, to focus on points of convergence rather than divergence. And I'm happy that we are now looking at some of the books, and I would appreciate that also the similarities between Islam, Hinduism, Judaism, Christianity, Zoroastrianism, and others, Judaism, yes, should be focused because the similarities are there. I am very impressed by the Hindu culture, especially where it concerns the elders, where it concerns the mother, which is also paramount. So these are the issues that we should focus. And we have many things original in our way of life. I'll give you a couple of examples. My wife must be tired of hearing this. After 9/11, we received about 86,000 emails from the States. People, I was here when the plane hit. I was in Boston with my wife. But what happened was, I went back. email after, we want to kill you, bloody Arabs, pigs. So on December the 19th of that year, I received an email. You know, I'm a stickler for the English language. The ones that have bad language, I just brush aside. But this guy wrote in a very good, impeccable English. And he said, "Dear Mr. AlMaeena," that's my family name. And he said, "I would like the armies of Christ to come in Mecca and decimate all of you, and pigs and swines will walk over the Kaaba." So I looked at it. I said, let me reply back to him. So I wrote to him. There was no reply. Then on December the 25th, and I do give gifts in Diwali and Holi and Christmas and the Jewish Hanukkah. I think it's the Hanukkah. Yes, sir. So I didn't give you, but next year you are assured. So I wrote to this gentleman. I said, "Dear Mr. Walpert, thank you. Today is 25th of December. I cannot give you a gift except I quoted to him the verse of Mary in the Quran." And I wrote to him. Within 2 hours, he replied back, "Now you steal our Bible." So you see, so I explained to him, you cannot be a Muslim, and I repeat again, you cannot be a Muslim if you don't believe in Jesus Christ and the coming of Christ. Am I right? And the Virgin Mary. So when he read the Quran, I never knew who this man, in Montana, it was freezing cold. He was a lay preacher. You would understand what lay preachers are, those who have these churches of 20,000, 25,000 people. He went to the church and said, as of today, nobody would attack a Muslim because they are our brothers. He had no idea, you see. And then he and I became friends. I had no idea how old he was or what was. And the New York Times wrote about this story, by the way. 4 months later, I received another email from another gentleman with the same family. He said, "My father is very ill." So I went to Mr. Ram, who was the managing editor. I said, "Mr. Ram, please post it." So the Pakistanis and Indians and others said, "We pray for you." You know, the usual Eastern ways. So the people there were saying that these people, our father abused them, but these guys are praying for us. And then Mr. Walpert died because his son Jeff wrote to me. He said, "I don't know what you did to my father." And he said that my father, after you started corresponding, he was a racist, a militant. Then he went for the first time in his life to the only black barber in town and had a haircut. See the transformation? From being totally anti-Muslim, anti-black and all, and a racist, he went. And yes, so these are some of the issues. What I'm trying to say is it's within each and every one of us. Forget the media. The media goes and on and on and on. Politicians use religion as a card everywhere in the world, whether in the Muslim world or the other ways. But unfortunately, in the Muslim world, it is receding. Forget Daesh and ISIS and all. They, and I say it openly, they do not represent 0.0% of the Muslim people. You hear of somebody stabbing, could be anybody. He doesn't represent us. Or somebody lynching someone in India. Again, doesn't represent the Hindus. Or somebody killing settlers in Palestine. They don't resemble represent my friend Rabbi Mark Gopin or the other people, you see. So it is important for us to be very careful, to be very astute, to be really focused when we report on these things or when we discuss these things, or we become agents of rumors. These are the issues that we should be focusing on, is try to focus and reach out. You know, I'm not in the preaching business, but let me tell you one thing, that once you explain the salient features of your religion to others and talk to them about it, it will be quite helpful in finding out that the common denominator exists. So in the final analysis, we are all together. Right now, as I said, the environment, COVID, everything is our enemy, not who comes first or who wins the election and all. So these are issues that I am very working on it. I'm happy that I came to Dr. Mike here, and I'll be more than happy to meet later on and later trips here so we can find out what needs to be done. Thank you. Saudi Arabia does not claim to be a leader of the world. It has the two it doesn't claim it has the two holiest born. But let me, since you mentioned this, I tell you that the fault of Indian Muslims lies with themselves. Look, go to South India, education and all. In UP and other places, these mullahs and the madrasas and all are the bane of Muslims, wearing the skull cap and moving around in the pyjama and all that, what they call, they've claimed. In India, Azharuddin was the captain. You have people playing. You have the president of India, Abul Kalam. India is a secular country. It is going through some, wobbly phase now. But in India, the beauty of India is its diversity. The Parsi sitting next to you, the Hindu, the Muslim, the Sikh and all. Unfortunately, the Muslims looked outside. Why should they support Daesh? Or why should they support ISIS? Why should they support foreign elements? It's none of your bloody business. Focus on education. Get your people to work together. Be a part of the mainstream instead of moaning and complaining all the time. Be a part of India. In India, you can be anything. Okay, the courts are there. So you see, we cannot just go on blaming, and then sometimes people say, oh, Saudi Arabia did not help us. Why should Saudi Arabia? You are an independent country, you have an independent judiciary, you have an independent government, you are a sovereign state. Never look. The problem with the Muslims of the central India, not the south. Remember when India was divided by the British, the Muslims of the south did not migrate to Pakistan, because they were well off. It's only the ones in the central. So I think the Indian Muslims should depend on themselves, focus on education, not allow Barelvis and Devbandis and all these mullahs and gullahs come over and try to fool them with their mumbo jumbo. Just as even the Hindu hardliners, the Baba Ramdevs and all these people should not try to fool these people. So I don't think so they should look up to Saudi Arabia. They do look, but I mean, they have to now change their. No, they look up for things like, okay, then why don't you follow Saudi Arabia? Saudi Arabia has now gone leaps and bounds in 3 years. They stopped, the Adhan is there. They stopped the microphones from blaring out. Why didn't the Muslims did not fall? They said, no, we will not. There are so many things happening in Saudi Arabia. Women are going ahead. Progress at all levels. They are still worried about niqab or that Fatima Bibi or Asya Bibi, I don't know, talaq, which is totally un-Islamic. I tell my Hindu friends that what you see from many of the Indian Muslims has nothing to do with Islam. It has to do with the peers and faqirs. The peers and the dargahs and has nothing to. I laugh when I go to India. They are not Muslims. You see, so they have to blame. So don't look up to Saudi Arabia. Look up to Saudi Arabia for progress. Look up to Saudi Arabia what is happening. Look what is happening in every aspect of life. And look, of course, for religious studies, certain things. But you cannot blame. If they become Wahhabis, they blame Saudi Arabia. If they become extremists, they blame Saudi Arabia. Don't. Look within yourselves. I have hope for India because as I said, the beauty of India lies in its diversity. And I say it very honestly, but we have to rise up. Education, they are mainly focused. I will tell you something, I will leave out the expletives, which I'll tell my Indian friends later. I was sitting and one guy came to my office in the Arab News. Now, the Arab News was focused in the first English language daily. Many of the people who read us were expatriates. The 80s, the Indians were reading, the 90s, the 2000, then other people started reading us. So this fellow came and he sat in my office and he came with somebody. I said, first of all, I don't know this man. Let him sit outside. Then when he sat, and this I think will relate to everyone, and especially to all of you from the subcontinent, he spoke to me and said, this man outside, he is a great player. He plays in Shivaji Park, and you know Shivaji Park in Bombay. I said, what is he? He's better than Tendulkar. So I said, call him inside. I said, why are you not playing cricket? He said, sir, I want to serve Islam. I said, serve Islam? I said, serve Islam. I've become a muaddin. I said, even a muaddin, anybody can open a tape recorder and do the adhan. So I said, you want to serve? You are a fool. And I abused him. Ma behan ka gali. And I said, I told him that fool, when you go and score a century for India, like Tendulkar does, the Hindu will not say you are a Muslim. They will say you are an Indian, you are winning at Lord's or at the Oval or in Australia. And And you are saying you want to serve, you can serve Islam being a sportsman. I said Muhammad Ali Clay, the grandson of a slave, in Illustrated Weekly, sports, 56 times on the cover, stripped of his title during the Olympics, fought, and when he died, the 3 remaining presidents attended his funeral. Because he was not only a sportsman, he was talking about people, he was a humanitarian. So you want to become a Muslim, get 100 runs for India. So you see, this is the problem with the Indian Muslim, the miskeen attitude, the self-groveling in pity and all of that. I agree with you, and I say this also our friends who are from India, there is growing pain in India, there is rising extremism, Islamophobia and all, but there are courts, there is justice, there are platforms that you can really avail and then fight your case. Well, I'll take you back to Beirut 2002, when the late King Abdullah announced, and Sharon had just gone to the hospital, but he announced that there will be 22 Israeli embassies in the Arab world if we agree on a settlement, if UN resolutions 242 and 338 are implemented. And the headline in my paper was 22 Israeli embassies, hopefully. What happened? Sharon went the next day, they attacked Arafat, put him in a cage, and things happened. So I think negotiations are a two-way street. If there is a realization that all of us are here to stay for a better Middle East, then I think yes. But I think these are sham peace movements, more cosmetic. Real issues, settlements, real issues of people in jail, real issues of burning of olive branches and other things, and rights should be moved. And I think there are many Israelis on that side who want that. So that, yes, it can happen. And Saudi Arabia, as I said, I'm not speaking for myself. Check 2002, the Beirut Arab Summit. And by the way, everybody was thinking that maybe Shimon Peres would be coming over. But he could not, because the hardliners refused. And the Arab peace plan, very open, no ambiguity, no double speak. It was a very clear piece. Come, do this, we will do this, and we'll go ahead. It didn't happen.
My question is related to the insurgency in Afghanistan, and overall it's like in a Muslim world. Taliban are the new rulers in Afghanistan, and in past Saudi Arabia has been a great inspiration for them. That was a big model for them. My question is, under the Mohammed bin Salman's 2030 vision, and as you have briefed, Saudi Arabia has apparently changed, and it is changing all the discourses. So do you think this new ideology coming from Riyadh is going to inspire the Taliban in Kabul?
Saudi Arabia was never an inspiration for the Taliban, ever. Even they came. As the Taliban were having control all over these years, women were going up and down, people were... So the idea that you equate the Taliban with the Saudi ideology is totally wrong. Absolutely. Now, do we have a control over them? I don't know. The people who created them, they were created for a certain purpose. How did they come within... people are saying Saudi Arabia, you leave $85 billion worth of equipment. Yesterday, they had a rickshaw. It's a great, I don't know if you've seen the picture, and tying a helicopter, and the rickshaw driver is driving away with a helicopter from an air base. Do you blame Saudi Arabia for that? Do you blame Saudi Arabia for other things that the Taliban did? No. So we are not an inspiration. We do hope that they will become like us, but we are in no way responsible, past, present, or future. It's for them, it's for those people who suddenly left Afghanistan, and while people are now talking about women's rights, what about the bombings that happened all these years? What about the innocent people that were killed in Afghanistan at wedding parties and others? So we should look at those issues. But again, let me...
You said that, pointed out that the media are to blame for spreading hate. But we have seen that the narrative also flows to a large extent from the political leadership. And media takes a cue, and then it metastasizes, and then it changes into different forms of discussion, like social media platforms. It goes there, and then it is in people's court. So, what is the role of political leadership in setting a narrative that is building harmony and working towards peace?
Apart from that, I think even political leaders are very selfish. What I think thought leaders, people like you who will persist, we may be slow, but we'll still keep on digging at the rock, hitting at it to see to it that we reshape it. Difficult because politics is being used by so many people all around the world. I would think that it's people like us, like you and me and others who sort of go on persisting and doing it. Political leaders look for votes, look for reports, look for balances, Gallup polls and all. You and I don't. This is very important. Academia also is very important. It's how you teach your students. Well, Sweden is a very rich country. So why shouldn't Muslims look at Sweden? You said about a rich country. They should look at it as the land of the Holy Mosque, as a guidance, as things like that. But do not equate your local politics. If you are somewhere sitting in Agra or Aligarh and all and running a local elections, you do not think of Saudi Arabia. You think of what you are going to do within the community, how to garner votes and do stuff like that. So this is what I said. Yes, Saudi Arabia is a beacon and now it is going on a path that is excelling. Yes, so follow it. Do what it does in some ways. But then again, you are a sovereign country. You are independent people, wherever you are. You see, this is very important. Well, I think the reforms are, I would say, a personal quest to make Saudi Arabia transform. Remember, the old guard focused on oil, and I think when the Crown Prince came, he must have been at a crossroad. Either I go and make these drastic changes, or in 10 years, if oil dries out, the country will be a country of paupers, a country where there will be famine and it will not flourish. So I think that was a very brave decision to take. So I think the good thing that also happened that 70% of the Saudis are under 30 years old or 35 years, and they are now with him. So this is a great idea. And even as I said, senior citizens know and realize that without reforms, end to corruption, when people were locked up for some time, people say, oh, there's human rights. But you have to put an end to corruption at one stage or the other. Now, drastic measures sometimes are necessary because for years this stream was going on. That was one. Secondly, you mentioned about whether people will have the right for citizenship. Even, by the way, people from Muslim countries, the system was, it took a long time. I think slowly it is going to change. And Dr. Safi will tell you also people who live 40 years, 45 years could not get. But I think there are so many elements that are changing. And remember, the first prime focus of the new leadership was end to corruption, alternative, diverse ways to get the economy restarted. Believe me, you said we are a rich country. Richness is because of sustained economic capabilities. And oil is not a sustained value because it could go or something could happen. So this is important. So I do agree that there will be changes, there will be positive changes, and that this new leadership is cognizant of the fact that we have to be on this train of progress, and that we are part of this global team. We are part of the G20. Many things are happening. And believe me, what happened was some of the things were put in the back burner. People complain that, oh, movies have come. Movies existed. A gentleman asked me whether you have a literary reforms or literary progress. They existed. But now the focus is more on literature, arts, culture, rights, women's progress. And they have been accepted. There has been no, and it doesn't just come from up to down. I see young people. Before I came, and I knew I had to speak to you, I asked 10 people last Friday whether, do you approve what's going on? And all of them said yes. There are pitfalls, there will be mishaps on the way, but there is positivity, and there's a buzz in the air. Very good question. And even for those, it's pertinent to those who are not from the subcontinent. For years, India thought that Saudi Arabia was looking at India through the Pakistani prism. through the looking glass of power. And this existed. If you remember that King Saud went to India in 1955, 20 years later, then later on the late Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru visited, Mrs. Indira Gandhi came. Relations between India and Saudi Arabia were totally economic, you know. I think in the past few years they've gone from the economic to the social to the how would I say, business interest. Example, $20 billion were invested in the Ambani Group, the largest research center for SABIC, which is the Saudi Arabian Basic Industries, is in Ahmedabad in India. So you see, there has been more and more people are going. Yoga is on the rise. Things are happening because there was that bamboo curtain between us and India, not out of commission, but more so by omission. That is one. And the Indians have realized that relationships are one way, rather not depending on Islamabad and all, but there is, friendly relations with both. And it's in the prime interest of Saudi Arabia to see that the subcontinent be a land of, peace and mature and healthy relationship between the two parties. So I truly believe, yes, now there's the Saudi-India Economic Commission, the joint bilateral relation, and you can see more and more of India. And remember also, the Indians took a head start because we used to read, like you read about us in the New York Times or in others, so you used to read about India in a very negative way. Pick up any paper, you can find out. I mean, when I read the book, Oh Calcutta, I was so depressed. But when I go to India in the south, I'm totally different. Yes, poverty exists. Yes, there's the fakirs and this and that. But there is a vibrant people. And the people who aspire and want to go ahead. So I think relationships are on the right course, not just because of the Modi government, because Saudi Arabia also realized that India is a regional player in the region. And it has its own mindset. But no, that's true. But what I think she meant, why the Indian Muslim won't know what the OIC is or the WMO. By the way, the OIC has different, every year they change, every 4 years. What I was saying, that they look upon to us. It is not Turkish, Hassan Oglu, Malaysian. Now there's a gentleman from Chad. But what the question was, that they look upon why is this happening? There are Indians and Pakistanis saying, why did you introduce movies in Saudi Arabia? They were more upset. The Saudis were happy. Movies existed in Saudi Arabia. Let me tell you, not now. Now they've come out in movie theaters. My mother saw most of James Bond movies in the 1970s in movies. But now it's out in the open, people are coming out. But what that question was, that why is it happening? I find more resentment and negativity coming from Muslims outside. So if they want to look at us, up to us, they should see what we are doing. But very few people would know what the OIC is. This is why like-minded people on both sides should get together. Right. It is going to be a tough road. I'm not saying you and I can sit for 60 years. We will not be able to solve the problems of the neighborhood in Jerusalem, but at least there will be a start. The people who will come after us will pick on from where we started. Exactly. This is why I'm optimistic. Yes.
Thank you very much. Well, let's observe. Chidanand, you want to say a thing about Gauri Lankesh?
Well, his wife was a very brave journalist, and she was assassinated a couple of years ago. I used to read her, and she stood up and fought for something. So I think we should have just a moment's silence for this lady who left us. She's no more. And we hope that she will be blessed and be in a better place than she is now.
1 minute silence, please.